Yellowjackets is back this week with the 5th episode of Season 3, and we're now officially at the halfway point. Following two major events in episode 4, which was Ben being found guilty for starting the fire and also Lottie's body being found at the bottom of the stairs. This episode followed on from those events perfectly as we saw Ben facing his punishment and the investigation into the suspect of Lottie's murder being investigated, with Shauna somehow managing to lose my respect even more and there being a large focus around the evil Tai. I feel like the show planted the seed that, did Tai do that? Well, maybe she did, but not the one that we thought. So with that, let's dive into the episode and break down all that there was to take away from it. Here is Yellowjackets Season 3 Episode 5 Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The importance of Coach Ben Scott. During this episode, we saw that Coach Ben was sentenced to death for the crimes that he was accused of committing. Shauna, being the newfound unpalatable version of herself, wanted to burn him at the stake. Yep, you heard that right. A death that would have been inhumane and extremely torturous. Whereas the others decided that firing squad would be the most appropriate way because it was the quickest method. I don't agree with any of those, but the girls even considering and then deciding to try and take the life of somebody that they had no evidence against for starting the fire showed that they were getting to levels in their mind that were unrecognizable. They were almost animalistic towards the end. Coach Ben was standing there and pleading with them, and they all went along with allowing Tai to fire at him until Lottie stopped her. Lottie intervened with the shooting because of Akilah's vision that she had whilst she was in the cave. Akilah said that within her vision, Coach Ben was this bridge that was across two sides of a cliff, and as she was walking over him into the darkness, she couldn't see anything, but what she experienced was the feeling of hope. That hope was most likely triggered due to the sounds of the city and the civilization that had become so alien to her. This made Lottie feel as though the wilderness wanted Ben to be alive and as if he had some kind of wider purpose for the group. If Ben were to die, then the plan and hope that the vision showed them would most likely be destroyed and it would come crumbling down. What's interesting about this is that in support of Akilah's vision of Ben being crucial to the survival of the group, the wilderness also showed Paul to Ben in the form of his voice. Paul told Ben to come home, so I feel Ben might just have a chance at surviving, something which I felt like his odds were on the floor of when the season began. With regards to Akilah, I actually feel so bad for her. Lottie is essentially using her as her bridge and connection point between the wilderness and herself to try and understand what it truly wants. This is all because Travis lied to Lottie about how the wilderness felt more connected to her. Simply because he was afraid of Lottie pushing him, and now he's roped Akilah into being the test subject for Lottie. So I do wonder if Akilah is going to meet her demise because she's going to be pushed too far. And then Travis will ultimately feel a sense of responsibility and guilt because, after all, Akilah did say to him, "You're the only person that I can trust," and he's already betrayed that trust. So those words would most likely sit with him, especially if she ends up being harmed. One thing I'll say about Shauna in this episode though, especially in the wilderness timeline, she's genuinely turning so evil and becoming such a vile person that it's getting hard to like her, which I do think is the point that the show is trying to make, but still, it's so difficult. The fact that she got Melissa to basically torture Ben during the ending to make sure that he wouldn't run away, and the enjoyment that she got out of inflicting that pain, it was just so sinister. I'm kind of hoping Ben survives the wilderness and he's the person that's tormenting Shauna in the present day. It would be a twist that I wouldn't expect because at the moment, all fingers are kind of pointing towards it maybe being Melissa. The Summoning of Evil Tai. All throughout the wilderness timeline, both Van and Tai were trying to summon the dark side of her so that she could be the version that pulled the trigger, as the regular Tai felt like it wouldn't sit well with her conscience. They tried all of the different methods, such as giving the wilderness blood, listening to the wilderness in terms of the wind and the leaves, and also being intimate with one another. However, it wasn't working. But we did see it eventually come out right at the end as Tai was about to fire the weapon at Ben. Whilst there was a heavy focus of this being present in the wilderness, I actually think that it was shown to us in the past because it was giving us a clue towards how Tai actually is in the present day. The scene where Tai was with her son Sammy, their interaction was so strange, and I feel like the line of dialogue gave us truth about what could be going on. Sammy said, "Are you not my mummy anymore?" And Tai responded by saying, "I'll always be your mummy no matter what." Whilst at face value it could seem like Sam was asking this question because he hadn't been around her for a while. I actually feel like he could have said this because he recognized the difference between his actual mother and the darker side that ultimately ends up taking over. Let's remember, he was the one that actually wanted to see his mother, so if she didn't seem how he was used to, that could have been why he walked away. It would also tie into Tai saying, "I'll always be it no matter what," and the fact that it could relate to whatever version she is. Sam is probably aware of what his mother's like and when he's around his actual mother. So I think this could be hinting at the fact that Evil Tai has had a grasp over her, but we've just seen her being able to blend in more. For example, Tai didn't bat an eyelid over the death of the waiter and was prepared to kill a stranger if it meant that Van would live. Plus, she also spoke to the wilderness with ease on several occasions. So I think Evil Tai is at the wheel in the present day, and Van might end up finding out the hard way soon enough. Who killed Lottie? So the death of Lottie was revealed to the group in this episode, and when I eventually die, if the reactions are as emotionless as that, I've clearly not made an impact on anybody's life. The beginning of the investigation behind who killed Lottie was being explored by Misty, Shauna, and Walter as they were posing as strangers to Lottie's father so they could snoop around his penthouse. Of course, before that though, Shauna had to accuse Misty because she's just that type of toxic friend. Whilst the three of them were in Lottie's father's home, we saw that there were a few interesting clues. There was a scrape on the wall in the basement which showed that Lottie could well have been pushed and tried to stop herself from falling. Plus, Misty also found a bank statement which showed that she'd just withdrawn $50,000, a sum that she could have been putting into the new bank account that she set up in the previous episode. As well as that, we saw that Shauna wasn't prepared to give any of her DNA over to prove that she wasn't connected to Lottie's death, and as well, we also saw that Tai had 1 hour that she was unaccounted for whilst herself and Van were in New York. So right now, everybody there is a clear suspect and could be behind the death of one of the core members in the group. There is this whole thing as well about the person that could be looking to try and kill Shauna, which I think it's looking like it could well be Melissa, judging by how close they seem to be getting in the wilderness timeline. So I think something is going to go wrong between the both of them, which is why we haven't seen her in the present day timeline at all yet. It just makes me think, could this same person that's after Shauna have been after Lottie too? And by pushing her down the stairs, it could have been a way of covering it up and making it seem like an accident, which is how the coroner's got it written down. Honestly, I'm just surprised that they don't have cameras going in and out of that room, to be honest. My review of the episode. I thought this was a good episode of the show. It progressed the story forward, and the investigation around what happened to Lottie gave the present-day timeline some kind of focus and reason to exist again, because it did feel like it was going a bit stale. I would say though, the first 3 episodes were so focused on Shauna being tormented and had that person that was trying to speak with her, but now it's kind of faded into the background. So I'm hoping we'll find out what's going on with that soon. Plus, I also really want to know what's on the tape that Callie's got. One element of the episode that I thought was a bit silly though was the fact that Lottie's father was just allowing 3 strangers to walk around his home and do as they pleased. He even had a carer there and she didn't cotton onto the fact that anything was suspicious, so I thought the writing of that scene just felt a little bit weak and not that well thought out. A scene that I did quite like in this episode though was the one where Shauna spoke to Lottie's father and he believed that he was talking to his daughter. Shauna hadn't properly mourned Lottie, and when she saw that Lottie had the photos of the Yellowjackets around her bed, it made her realize that Lottie did actually care about them, despite it being shown in a very strange way. Shauna almost used Lottie's father as a way of saying what she wished she could have said to Lottie, and that hug was also meant for her too. I'm still definitely preferring the wilderness timeline, and I hope that we spend a bit more time within it. I just don't want the whodunit part of the show in the present day to now take over and it be stuck there, as I think the dynamic between the characters is just a lot stronger in the wilderness. The best part about the present day timeline is definitely Misty. Now that we've passed the halfway point of the season, I feel like the show has to increase the pace, and hopefully it'll start to provide some answers that we're looking for. Like, who's after Shauna? Will Ben survive? Will Akilah survive? Is Evil Tai at the wheel? And who killed Lottie? So, there you have it. Yellowjackets Season 3 Episode 5 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on Yellowjackets Season 3, then click on the card in the top corner. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What did you think of this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for tuning into this week's Yellowjackets breakdown, and I'll see you in the next one.